Alright, so yeah, it's going on down here. Solomon's temple, Israel building the world, says here. Yeah. This one says here, following the destruction of Solomon's temple, certain Jews in Egypt built a small temple to continue religious practices in their community. The first temple built by King Solomon around 966-959 BCE was a grand structure made of white limestones and cedar adorned with gold. Yeah, I got to that article here, right here. Yeah, I need that. It says it was a grand structure made of white limestones and cedar adorned with gold and served as the primary site for Jewish sacrifices and religious ceremonies. Temple was destroyed 586. You read that already. No, that, yeah, but Nebuchadnezzar II, yeah. Following the Jewish return from Babylonian captivity, the second temple was constructed on this original site and completed in 516 BCE. This temple faced significant challenges, including looting by Seleucid king Antiochus IV Epiphanes, which led to the Maccabean revolt. It was later refurbished by Herod the Greek in the 1st century BCE, becoming a magnificent focal point for Jewish worship. However, the second temple was ultimately destroyed. Yep. It says, and was lavishly decorated with gold. Sacrifices and religious ceremonies were held there as prescribed in the Jewish scriptures. Today you got the Dome of the Rock on above it. It was built on the surviving Herodian platforms in 691 CE. That's where the Dome of the Rock is, on top of that. It says, I want to go to this article here. This talks about it. Ancient Israelites build temples outside of Jerusalem. They got a whole video on it. It's a short video, I'll let it
play. Some have questioned if it was appropriate under the law of Moses for Nephi to build a temple in the New World. After all, some passages from the Old Testament might be interpreted to mean that God forbade temple worship of any kind outside of the temple in Jerusalem. But did you know modern archaeology has shown that ancient Israelites built temples outside of Jerusalem? Several temple sites have been identified throughout the land of Israel, and even at one location in Egypt. Nephi constructing a temple in the New World shows just how committed he was to keeping God's ordinances. His dedication to building a temple, along with other ancient Israelites, teaches us how essential temple worship really is. This is another reason why the Book of Mormon is such a moving account of believers.
Yeah, of course they go off of the whole Mormon shit. It says, but yeah, I mean, that's because they gotta add the Mormon shit now. I don't know if this is genuine or not. Just off that book being fake and shit, the whole Book of Mormon shit. But yeah, I just don't see it being. I don't see that being outside the realm of possibility, where that they built a temple in Egypt, near Egypt over there. Con I'll just go back to this here. This article here. Jerusalem, his history, this first and second temples. No visitor to Jerusalem can escape hearing references to the first and second temple. This is the photo there. It's down below. It's known as the Wailing Wall, the Kotel, or the Western Wall. And it's also where they have this thing called outside the Dome of the Rock. They have this thing here called this is called. It's another historical land, Islam holy site. So they have both of these. Yeah, this is also on the Temple Mount. Yeah, so both of these are in the same building, the Dome of the Rock, and this mosque. It's a Dome of the Rock / mosque. This is the inside of it. It's basically a rock in there. It's a literal rock in there that they worship, basically. Because they know us. They know that's it. They know Jacob's the former of all things. That's why they worship it. Because that Ishmael shit goes back to that. And then yeah, man, they just took our identities. Like just as the fake Jews worship that wall, because they know it's technically, essentially, like they're worshiping us, like our history, like Jacob's history, Jacob's former of all things. Once again, that's why they're subconsciously and consciously worshiping that shit, bro. Yeah. Yep. From the First Temple period in 701 BC, there are significant remains of preparations made by King Hezekiah when the siege on the city of Sennacherib, Kingdom of Syria, was imminent. Those remains include Hezekiah's tunnel and the broad wall in the Jewish quarter. So that's evidence of the Old Testament archaeology. It's Old Testament archaeology. Yahushua was crucified 40 years before the destruction of the city. It says there are significant archaeological remains from the Second Temple period, including the Kidron Valley tombs, the Western Wall, Robinson's Arch, the Herodian residential quarter, and numerous other tombs and walls. Yeah, that's where that's the same place where Yahushua would have been standing above that Herod's wall stuff. Herod's wall. They call the remains of Herod's mount. So yeah, where the temple was standing. Basically, what they did to build a temple above that was build a flat ass surface, man-made surface, and put bricks on it to make a flat surface on that. Basically, that's what they did. So I got this other article website on Wikipedia now. Ancient Israel and Judah, it says here. The earliest documented mention of Israel as a people appears on the Merensepe stele, an ancient Egyptian inscription dating back to around 1208 BCE, which would fit the timeline of us leaving Egypt around 1400 BCE. That would have been about 400 years before the temple was established by Solomon, you could say. A bit of past 400 years. 450, 30, 430 years after the fact. Alright. Let's look at this Merensepe stele. This is a photo of it. Is an inscription by Merensepe, a pharaoh in ancient Egypt who reigned 1213 to 1203 BCE. Discovered by this guy in 1896. It's housed now at the Egyptian Museum at Cairo. Yeah, it's a big ass museum. Very fancy ass museum over there. A lot of that's gonna be destroyed when we get to the kingdom. If it was built for a false god, if it pertains unto a false god, things of that sort, there, it's gonna be destroyed there. Alright. 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 Yeah, that's where they found it in the map here in the screen. If you're looking at the screen, you're not being lazy. This is from Thebes, and then the Egyptian Museum at Cairo. The stele represents the earliest textual reference to Israel and the only reference from ancient Egypt. It is one of 4 known inscriptions from the Iron Age that date to the time of the mentioned ancient Israel by name, with the others being the Mesha stele. That was from King Mesha, Moab. That's mentioned in the book of 2 Kings, chapter 1 to 2. One of those where this king of Moab called Masha, King Masha of Moab, or Mesha, I think, fight against Ahab's son. The Lord sends the floods, I think, to destroy their army. So Israel wins, even though Ahab's son was a wicked. He got a good victory there. Lord, representing the Lord's mercy, despite our wickedness. It says, tell the other scripture, known inscriptions of the Iron Age, other ones, others known as the Tel Dan Stele and the Kirk monoliths. I never heard of this one here. The Kirk monoliths. This was from the monolith stele of Shalmaneser III. Dates 852 BC and 979 BC. Providing the first extra biblical reference to Ahab, king of Israel, although this is the only reference to the term Israel in Assyrian and Babylonian records, which usually refer to the northern kingdom as the house of Omri. Yeah, Omri was the real person, individual in the scriptures. So this just proves the Bible exists. It's not fake. It's not a fairy tale book. Because it's like, nigga, why would they also told us they have a nation called the nation of Israel? You ain't gonna name a nation after a fictional, something that's fucking fictional, like fucking SpongeBob or Fairly Odd Parents, bro. According to the description, Ahab committed a force of 2,000 chariots and 10,000 foot soldiers to the coalition against Assyria. He even said it right there. It is also one of the 4 known contemporary inscriptions containing the name of Israel. The others are the Merentepa Stele. That's the one we just got there about that was the Egyptian one, the Teldan Stele. Might as well get this, like the history. It's good to go into the history here. We're gonna keep getting the history here. It says the Teldan Stele is containing the Arabian inscription. The surviving inscription details that an individual who killed Jehoram, king of Israel, Samaria, the son of Ahab, and Ahaziah, king of Judah, a king of the house of David. The stele is on display at the Israel Museum. There's a photo of it. It's in Paleo Hebrew. It's Aramaic, Phoenician. They call that Phoenician alphabet. The likely candidate for having erected the stele, according to the Hebrew Bible, is Hazael. Kingdom of Aram, Damascus, whose language would have been Old Aramaic. He is mentioned in 2 Kings 12:17-18 as having conquered Israel, Samaria, but not Jerusalem. Okay. Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, that would have been Elam or Aramic. Assyrian, that would have been I think Elon is East Indians today in the Elon. Uh, Aram, that would have been Aramic, if I'm not mistaken. The is Assyrians today, that would be the Iranians today. There's basically a similar tribe, just like Judah has similar tribes like Issachar, but different, the whole different styles. Basically, you can characterize them with, like Esau has his own different tribes within his nation as well. Just like Moab, even Moab with Ammon and Moab and Ammon, yeah, but theirs ain't as much as ours though. Israel has 12 different tribes. Those nations don't have as many tribes to them as like ours does. And then you have the Mesha Stele right here. This is Moab. This was Moab. He wrote. He also mentions the house of David in this one. So yes, these are four Old Testament inscriptions mentioning Israel, kings of Israel, individual names, kings of Israel, from 4 different kingdoms here. It even has, this one has the name Yahweh on it. But come on, let's go all the way back. Where were we? I'm just looking at this, man. The Kirk monolith is the Assyrian one, mentioned in the House of Omri, Omri was the king of the Northern Kingdom. Chodan study was Aramaic, mentioned in 2 Kings of Israel. Fitting in line with Khan. Yeah, I'll just make a whole video, a separate video on that, Lord willing. But going back to the main point of this video here, and then so it says here, in 720 BCE, this Northern Kingdom was destroyed. It was conquered by the Neo-Assyrian Empire, while the Kingdom of Judah remained intact during this time. It became a client state of the first to the Neo-Assyrian Empire and then the Neo-Babylonian Empire. However, Jewish revolts against the Babylonians led to their destruction in 586 once again. So that was like 620, 30. It's like 134 years before Judah fell. 130 something. Under the rule of the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar, according to biblical account, the armies of Nebuchadnezzar II besieged Jerusalem between 589 and 586 BCE, which led to the destruction of Solomon's temple and the exile of the Jews to Babylon. Here's this is from Ramses III prisoner house, depicting Canaanites and the Shasu leader. These were Israelites. This was an Assyrian era. This was Northern Kingdom around the time of their fall. The term Hebrew later developed into a distinct ethnic identity, the Shasu, often associated with pastoralist groups east of the Dead Sea. Okay, let's go back to the video here. This is the earliest known temple predating Solomon is a complex whatever that's how you say that, a complex of massive stone. This is one in Turkey. Stone pillars in Turkey dating to approximately 9500 BCE. Other examples include the Temple of Shiloh, which was the center for worship before Solomon's temple, and later temples like the one at Tel Arad, which was built around a century after Solomon's. Before the Jerusalem temple was built, the tabernacle served as the mobile sanctuary for the Israelites. According to Korah, Göbekli Tepe, located in present-day Turkey, the site is considered one of the world's oldest known temples. It was founded around 9500 BCE and it was abandoned around 8000 BCE. Let's look at a photo of it. So this is a photo of that temple here. That the first temple, they're saying this was the first ever temple built, but it was idolatrous one though. So they ultimately can't really figure how it really looked like. The tabernacle, a portable sanctuary built by the Israelites in the desert, it served as a central place of worship for the Israelites before they settled in the land of Canaan. The temple of Shiloh. After the Israelites settled in Canaan, the tabernacle was moved to Shiloh. It served as the central sanctuary until the Ark of the Covenant was moved to Jerusalem by King David. The Arad temple, this temple discovered in modern-day Israel, was constructed around 900 BCE. It shows similarities to the Temple of Solomon and served as a place of worship for the Israelites. Tel Moza temple, the temple was located, this is another temple located near Jerusalem. Dates to around 900 BCE. It shows architectural similarities to Solomon's temple. Leading some to believe it may have been a sanctioned Israelite temple. Count a difference between Herod's temple and Solomon's temple. So this is just some history here. I think I'll end it with this. It's been a while since I've been bringing the scriptures. So I'll close out with this one of this here and continue this later. Or I'll just get this last little bit here. Difference between Herod's temple and Solomon's temple. The Ark of the Covenant was not inside Herod's temple. Reconstruction. Yeah, so that's a major difference between Herod's temple and Solomon's. The Herod's temple didn't have the original Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant represents God's presence among the Israelites, serving as a physical manifestation of his throne on earth. It symbolized, yeah, so basically going back to the earlier videos I mentioned, the temple was like a throne for the Lord where he was at in Israel, where he would be in Israel as his throne there. It says they're saying it right there, serve it as a physical manifestation of his throne on earth. It symbolized his covenant with them, and it contains sacred items, the tablets of the Ten Commandments, a pot of manna, and Aaron's budded staff. The ark also represents to God's holiness and the need for reverence due to its holy nature. God's presence. The ark was a visible symbol of God dwelling in the midst of his people. It was central to their worship. The covenant. It was named the Ark of the Covenant because it held the tablets of the Ten Commandments, representing the covenant itself, which actually had more than 10 commandments on those. If we're not mistaken, I believe. I'll have to, my history, I'm kind of rusty. My memory is rusty on that, but God's provision and approval, the pots of manna inside. It makes sense though, because there was more than 10 commandments, but it's possible there was just 10. Who knows? Those were the might have just been the main 10 commandments. I don't know. I have to look to get my history is rusty on it. God's provision and approval. The pot of manna inside was a reminder of God's constant provision of food for the Israelites, while Aaron's rod that budded symbolized God's approval of Aaron as the high priest, the Levitical priesthood, and the Lord providing for his people. That's what both of those represented. God's holiness and justice. The ark's extreme holiness meant that unauthorized people could not touch it without dire consequences, which demonstrated the sanctity of God's presence. Guidance and protection. It served as a symbol of God's guidance, as seen when it led the Israelites across the Jordan River, and was also seen as a sacred object that guaranteed the people's safety, particularly in war. Solomon's temple was special because it was the original divinely inspired structure that housed the Ark of the Covenant, embodying the direct presence of God in a way the second temple rebuilt by Herod did not. While Herod's temple was larger and did more ornaments, it was seen by some as a recreation, not the original, and its magnificence was a political and architectural marvel rather than a continuation of the original divine dwelling. And I'll continue this later on. I'll close with one last scripture because it's been a while since I got a scripture. I was just bringing out history, historical facts, and reading articles and lines and articles and other article there. I'll get this, close out with this. It's Acts 17 and 24. It reads, God who made the world and all things therein, seeking that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands, because that's all temporary. Once again, the Lord destroyed the temple we had because he doesn't dwell in temples made by hands. He's going to dwell in us, in the kingdom, in God-like bodies, in his own design. This is John 2 and 19. Yahushua answered them. Actually, I'll start at like 18. Or I'll say here. John 2 and 16. To those selling doves, he said, get those out of here. How dare you turn my father's house into a marketplace? Yeah, that was the problem with that first temple there. And this temple right now we're in right now, basically the whole earth is the Lord's temple, and Esau is making it all a marketplace. So if Yahushua as a man in that time got angry about that, how is he going to come back this time to the main one selling this whole place as a marketplace, the main enemy Esau? 2/3 is by people as well. 17. His disciples remembered that it is written, zeal for your house will consume me. 18. On account of this, the Jews demanded, what sign can you show us to prove your authority to do these things? 19. Yeah, it was his own people questioning Yahushua there. 19 here. Yahushua answered, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I'll raise it up again. 20. This temple took 46 years to build. The Jews replied, and you are going. That's referring to the second temple, of course, obviously. The Jews replied, Jew means Judah, you are going to raise it up in 3 days. And you are going to raise it up in 3 days. But Yahushua was speaking about the temple of his body. And after he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and the word that Yahushua had spoken. So yeah, man, that's concludes this lesson here. The Yahushua is coming to build a new temple, our bodies, going back to those earlier scriptures I brought, Shalom and Abad Babad.